Hey everyone, welcome to Absolutely PlayStation Steam Gamers, Tower Talk Episode 2. I'm Shank, this is the King Coda, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about the storytelling and lore from Season of the Splicers, and maybe we'll backtrack a little bit into Season of the Chosen, Season of the Hunt. Some big things have been coming out over the last 2 to 3 weeks. We're not going to touch on the stuff that came out this current week. I will say, if you haven't had a chance yet, log in and queue into the tower.
Yeah, just run around the tower for 5 seconds.
It'll at least get you interested enough to go and get caught up on the story. But I think we're going to just take a look at some of the new storytelling mechanics that Bungie's had and then maybe do a deep dive into the lore. So
yeah, this is basically a continuation of last week where we went too long on all of our lore stuff. We decided to just make that this week.
Yeah. And we eventually will get back to some of the other stuff, the stasis nerfs.
Oh yeah, we got gameplay stuff that was also supposed to be talked about that we didn't do.
But we promised you this one, so we'll go ahead and dig into this. I gotta say, personally, I am loving the new way they're doing the storytelling. We mentioned it last week. It is so nice having, just not having them chirp in your ear at the end of missions. They still do that,
right?
But having to actually go and interact with the characters, having them at the helm, arguing, having conversations in front of you with you.
Right.
It just makes you feel like you're more involved in the story instead of just a spectator in it.
It's kind of interesting because it's like people have a heated debate or something. It used to be that they were still on the phone while they were doing that, having this heated debate, and now it's like, no, you would put it down, walk the 5 feet over, and actually talk to that person.
Right.
And now it's like you're overhearing a private discussion between two people, and then they're like, oh, you heard that. Oh.
One thing I do wish they would do is they used the Helm War Table last time.
Mm-hmm.
This season hasn't had really any of the Helm War Table, kind of like how Saladin would pop up.
I wonder. It's weird because it was treated more like a military operation last year in Season of the Chosen. Saladin was the overseeing commander and whatnot. But even though this is a direct invasion of the tower in that the sun's gone, it's more or less important, I guess, to what's going on with the Vanguard and whatnot. What's Saladin doing?
Yeah, what's Saladin doing? What is Zavala doing?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like this is a much more pressing threat than the Cabal entering the system. I mean, as intimidating as the Cabal are, ultimately they're just another warring faction. When you're talking about the Vex, you're talking about time travel, and then now all of a sudden they've blackened the sky, made it endless night, and there's Vex wiring and all kinds of other knickknacks in the tower that you can see, which means that's going all throughout the city.
Yeah.
And Zavala's just not involved,
no.
At least as far as the story goes, and I think that's the biggest misstep this season so far.
I've been busy. I watched this week's stuff. Is he reacting at all to what's going on in the tower even? If you run over and talk to him? No? He's just looking at that big old round rock still, huh?
Yeah, and for as almost organized as it seems like they were last season, it seemed like the Vanguard was an actual competent functioning military force. This season, all of a sudden, you have an enemy not only at the gate but inside the city.
Right.
Both an external threat and an internal threat, and it seems like all of a sudden the Vanguard doesn't have the wherewithal to be able to deal with either one.
So I think I might have an idea as to why this is, and it's a difficulty of getting the voice actors together. Because you gotta also think a lot of what's going on right now was either filmed or prepared during this past year.
Right. I know that's what the actual limitation is.
Right. So they'll probably have like a book or something in the lore that later on will be like, here's what they were busy doing at that time.
Well, yeah, but I think that book should have probably come out this season.
Yeah.
And if somebody knows of a book, feel free to comment and let me know, because I need to know what the heck is going on with Zavala. I mean, at this point, I guess we could just start talking about what's actually happening in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And not only is there a Vex, and at this point, we won't spoil this week's stuff, but we will spoil last week's stuff. And last week we found out that it's actually a Taken threat,
right?
And a Hive threat are inside the city. Korea, the Dreaming Mind, has essentially bootstrapped the entire Vex network to do as she wishes, which I know I'm patting myself on the back, but that was my assumption from the beginning. Although there was the whole a Hydra showed up in the first mission.
Right, there's a Taken Hydra, and there's only one Taken Hydra in the lore. It's not an enemy you ever fight.
Yeah.
This is like the first time you see one.
But at this point, that doesn't even seem like it's the biggest threat, because we're slowly dismantling.
Oh, no. So to go back as to who Korea is. So a long time ago, Crota did an oopsie and had a bunch of opened up a gate to the Vex hive mind, and they invaded Oryx's throne world. Oryx got mad, put his son in timeout by throwing him back through that portal. Crota then came back with this hive mind, right? He brought it with him as a gift.
So what happened was Crota saw his sisters messing with the death song, yada yada, paracausal, hivey-wivey magic. Crota was like, yo, bro, I can do that too. Tries to slice a hole in reality. Out through that hole, pour the Vex. Vex that we haven't even seen up until this point. Actual, like, armed frames.
Right.
Not just, like, builder frames.
Like, they're homeworld defenders.
Right. One of the leader, the mind that was controlling this invasion force, was Korea. After fighting with the Hive for long enough, Korea deduced the sword logic and became Korea Blade Transformed. And basically realized that by killing in that space, she would become more powerful. And also by worshipping, she would become more powerful. Worshipping violence, essentially. And she never took a worm into... like a hive worm into her Radioloria.
Would that even work?
Well, that is how the hive.
Well, that's how the hive. Power. Yeah, but would Vex be like? They're goop.
The question is, will the sword logic work as effectively without the worm?
Right.
But we're getting a little bit off topic. That part isn't as important as.
No, but I want to loop back to this later because I have questions now.
Okay. Korea was basically kicking Crota's ass in Oryx's throne world. One of the worm gods came to Oryx and said, you need to get your shit together. You need to get your house in order. He comes, he takes Korea, and then, like you said, picks Crota up by his ankle, tosses him into the Vex network, and Crota has to fight his way back through time in order to meet back up with his father. And that's where Crota became a badass, because basically he said, what was the exact quote? Return victorious or die forgotten.
Yeah.
Something like that. And And that's when Crota became a bit of a badass. Up until that point, Crota was a bit of a fuck up.
Right.
So when Oryx took Coria, he left Coria a bit of her own imagination.
Right.
Didn't completely take her. And then handed her off to Sabathune and was like, here, have fun. This is yours now. Coria has been able basically to simulate Oryx unsuccessfully quite a few times, but eventually was able to deduce the ability to take. And that's how Sabathune has...
That's why they're still taken without Oryx.
Yes, they're able to take new creatures, and they're able to control what the Taken are doing. They're not just like rabid monsters.
And you see that we saw this in the original Destiny 2 through adventures. There were adventures where you would either stop Sabathune from taking something, or she would take it right before you got there, and then you have to fight that big Taken boss.
Yeah.
It was her just practicing the power, basically.
Yep.
And then fast forward to Forsaken. This is where Coria really kind of enters the lore for us to hear about. Is Riven, who was also taken by Oryx, but she is a wish dragon, so she manipulated the fact that Oryx wanted to take her to make that a wish, to where she got her free will, even though she got taken. It's kind of a good move there.
Yeah. She tricked the Taken King. So.
Right. So she, when we murder her, she grants one last wish in that moment because we really wanted to murder her. And she's like, okay, I will use the power from your wish to also, I believe, speculation, she uses that to then pass it on to her friend Sabathune, to Coria, to grant Coria the ability to make an enveloping simulation, which now encompasses the Dreaming City. It's simulated to constantly be in a cycle of curse.
Right. So our wish was to kill Riven.
Right.
And get loot.
Specifically, I'm going to say that's the world's first team's fault. And I'm blaming this on Sweatsicle. Everyone, it's Sweatsicle's fault.
But yeah, at the end of the Last Wish raid, you'll hear Riven say, one good wish deserves another.
Mm-hmm.
And that was to essentially grant Sabathune's wish to allow Coria to project her simulation into real life, which I'm assuming is what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
Coria is able to project a simulation into real life. And if you see the current state of the Dreaming City, this is really not good news for the last city, because the Dreaming City, I mean, it fell hard.
Mm-hmm. But also the state of the Dreaming City is also tied in the Shattered Throne to a specific hive there. One of the witches.
Well, that's a little subplot if you're looking at
it's like
the Shattered Throne lore. Dulinkaru is trying to find a way to break into the Awoken homeworld.
Mm-hmm.
And because Dulinkaru is in the 3-week cycle but keeps her consciousness, she's always able to continue to... She gets basically infinite retries. Regardless of if we kill her or not, she gets to continue to try to break into the distributary. My
understanding was that's how the curse cycle is kept, is through Dulinkaru. It revives her at the... so you have no curse, where she starts coming to break through. Then the 3rd week used to be whenever you could do Shattered Throne. You could only do it in the high curse week. Then you kill her, and it goes back to the calm week, and then it just starts over. Right. Well, I mean, some of it's just limited by gameplay. I mean, they try to explain it through the lore the best they can, but what happens is she is continuing to make the corruption worse and worse and worse, and then you kill her at the end. Right. And then, although who's doing that now? Because we're busy. Okay, so this is my headcanon. They just assign a random guardian in the tower. They're like, okay, these are the mechanics of the fight.
You have to go in every 3 weeks, and you have to kill Dulankaru.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Guardian, the Young Wolf, did this already, showed us how to do it. You just, like, here's an Anarchy, here's a Witherhorde. You can run 3 exotics, just go. Just go. Your job is just to deal with this problem.
You can run 3 exotics. Yeah, that could be it. Or, I do think that there are just Guardians that, like, once we gained access to Dreaming City, a bunch of Guardians just went there.
Yeah.
And because they, all the time in the lore, they're, like, exploring Titan or something. They're meant to be the other people that you see whenever you're on your adventure.
Right.
Those are the unimportant Guardians, that blueberry over there.
Yeah.
With higher power than you.
Have better armor and better weapons.
But they're not the protagonist.
It's me. It's all about me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that brings us basically to this season where Korea has somehow managed, well, not somehow managed, I'm assuming it's a derivative of Ribbon's wish, is able to project this endless night over the city.
Mm-hmm.
A, blocking us off from the tower, or from the Traveler, not the tower. B, it's psychologically draining.
Right.
C, it's draining the energy from the city for something. We don't know what.
Could just be lowering our power, so like automatic defenses, like the frames, probably can't be recharged and whatnot.
Possibly, but I feel like...
I mean, there's more to it.
I know it's a meme at this point, but I feel like Sabathune's doing kind of everything for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out, and credit to my man Bife for finding this, but apparently the reason we can't figure out what's going on, like we keep sending out signals to try to probe at the Vex like simulation over top the city, and we keep getting back like nothing's wrong. Well, apparently the Vex network is taking those signals and then spoofing basically it's mirroring the signal and sending like spyware back to us.
Yeah.
And that's how they're like getting into like all the power, the water. So if that wasn't bad enough, at this point it seems like we have a traitor amongst us.
Yeah. Was that the lore entry from last week or this week?
I don't think you need to reference anything said this week.
I was just wondering because there was mention of Sabathune is specifically amongst us.
There's been multiple lore entries that have shown Sabathune walking through the city in basically a person suit.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's too much of a stretch. I mean, everybody's talking about it at this point to say that it's Osiris.
Yeah, I mean, Osiris is definitely compromised since the crown incident of the season of the Chosen. Maybe before that.
Much sooner than that. I was replaying some Season of the Hunt dialogue, or like missions, coup de grace, that kind of stuff. He is still saying suspicious things. It wasn't as suspicious back then because we chalked it all up to him grieving over the loss of his ghost.
Of Segura.
But remember, that season starts with him going deep into the Hive, like the Hive world, like Hive territory, fighting against an enemy that is known for corrupting.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden we come back, or we show up and we see Osiris doesn't have a ghost. Osiris's ghost dies off screen. Granted, there was a web
they couldn't avoid the voice actress anymore, apparently, which is real sad. I like Segura.
They couldn't afford Ikora, and guess what? Ikora's talking. Yeah, just get a new Segura. That's not an excuse anymore.
Segura 2. Electric Boogaloo.
I think that's the point where Osiris got switched out.
Yeah.
If not switched out, corrupted in a very complete and total sense.
Yeah, I think he tried to fight the Hive how he had been fighting the Vex. I mean, when he went to go and fight the Vex on Mercury, he just went into their time, the forest.
The Infinite Forest.
Yeah, he just went into there, and that's where he's been for the past, like, 30 years. He probably tried to do the same thing with the Hive, and he went too deep, and the Hive are corrupting.
Right. And specifically the Witch Queen
Right.
is known for deception, trickery, corruption.
I'm gonna say that I don't think Osiris will still be a villain. I think he's still gonna be like on the side of the tower. It just might take us like freeing him of Sabathune's control.
Right. Well, just speculating what's going to happen in the future. I'm kind of hoping Osiris doesn't make it. Not because I dislike Osiris, I feel like in order for Sabathune to have any weight, granted, Sabathune is responsible for the death of Cade, if you think about it. But in her, like, ultimate appearance, in her expansion, she really needs to be able to take care of a main character.
Right.
If she's going to have any teeth. Aramis didn't do anything like that, and Aramis is forgettable.
So instead of Osiris, Sabathune shows up and kills Petrovenge.
No, I hope not.
No.
Poor Petra deserves a retirement. She doesn't deserve to die.
Or kills Tess. No more Eververse.
Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. There would be much rejoicing, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Or we'll just get Churchill in the tower finally.
Finchurch?
Yeah, Finchurch, yeah.
And
Churchill was the British Prime Minister. That's right.
Yes, my new headcanon is that Finchurch is Churchill.
It's an exo of...
So yeah, at this point, Osiris seems to be actively playing every side in the tower to get everyone upset with each other.
Right. Which, especially this week, but not going to talk about that. So there's other stuff happening within the tower, more fighting within, coming from a certain Exo.
Yes. And they have just made her comically evil. Lakshmi, too, at this point, is just a comic book bad guy, racist, Nazi. Like,
yeah. Like,
there's no redeeming qualities about her, which is weird because she wasn't really like this before. You know what I mean?
No, but she's definitely being manipulated.
Well, yeah, she's also being corrupted, but I feel like in her case, the corruption is more.
The Future War cult has always been haughty and full of themselves as being like the best out of the three, which is why they're the worst out of the three. Facts. But I don't know. Like whenever we had faction wars, especially in D2, anytime I would talk to Lakshmi, I was just like, "You're just looking down at me, and I've killed a god." It's like.
Right, but condescension and racism are two different things. I mean,
no.
You could say that racism
I don't think that
breeds from condescension, but
I don't think that Lakshmi actually has anything specific out against the Elixni. She's just using them. It's less direct racism. I mean, it's a form of racism, but it's more fear-mongering.
Yeah, it's political maneuvering. And you're right. I think what's happened, we've seen in the lore that Sabathune, we know that Sabathune and Corey are responsible for the Endless Night, but we've also seen that the Future War Cult network has traces of Sabathune's song embedded inside of it, which means Sabathune is directly interfering with the Future War Cult and most likely the device that Lakshmi is using. giving her visions, most likely, that will make her
act irrationally.
Act irrationally, yes, but act in a way to try to gain power. And also a portal opens.
Portal always opens.
Yes.
Also, Bungie, I'm sure you're watching this. When Witch Queen comes out, can we get a full cover of Shax singing the I'm on the Moon, It's Made of Cheese? Like, just a full, 5-minute song, rock cover. Please put that on the album.
So we can talk about Sabathune's song for a little bit for those, because I feel like quite a few people who watch this don't play Destiny as frequently as we do.
I heard it.
What is Sabathune's song?
Ba da 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 da.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I heard Sabathune's
it.
song.
I heard it on a show recently. Like, I heard that melody. I was like, oh no,
it's everywhere.
It's spreading.
It's Bungie's 4D marketing.
I think it was Digimon. I think I heard it in Digimon.
So, Sabathune's song is basically a viral chant that it's speculated corrupts whoever has heard it. So far, the people who have heard it: Shax, Saint, Eris, Drifter. Pretty much anybody in the Future War Cult and the city, because they're now singing the song in the city.
Us
is a big one.
Zavala.
I don't know that Zavala has.
It's a questionable thing, but I was watching some lore speculator. Some of the stuff, the lore of Zavala talking to the Traveler, because he has mental conversations with the Traveler. Some of it is, if you put it in a song, his beats could fit Sabathune's song.
That's just one bit of speculation.
Yeah, it's speculative.
I'm talking about people we know for a fact have heard it.
Right.
All those people we've either heard sing it or have been sung to. Crow.
Which I don't know where he heard it, unless it's still in him from when he was Aldrin.
It's a good question. Probably Osiris.
Yeah, he's friends with Osiris, true.
Yeah, Osiris is the guardian who brought him in.
If he whistles it while he's walking through the tower, as much as he does inside the
helm,
Amanda Holiday probably heard it, because they have a little thing.
I'm just saying, the Crucible, Gambit, Ikora at this point has to have heard it, because she's been on the Future War Cult network. But I think the most terrifying part is that the citizens of the city are now singing Sabathune's song as a rallying cry to get rid of the Endless Night that Sabathune put into place.
Which, that means that I don't think there's anyone in the city that hasn't heard it now.
Right. So the question is, what does it do? I think it just makes you more susceptible to Sabathune's corruption. Yeah. Or maybe it's just a calling card.
I think it's there as a way to make us feel uneasy once we find out that it's a thing. Because we are already speculative about this song because of how Aramis reacted to the Drifter saying that Shax sang it. Right?
Eris.
Yeah, Eris. Not Aramis. So, we already know that kind of song is bad. And so once it's found out that they're singing her song, it's like, oh, we have to stop this somehow. But that could be the distract from a different play. The song could just be nothing.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Is it just a psychological manipulation? Like, hey, I was here, and you don't know what I did, but you know I was here.
Because the whole thing,
Or is it actually some type of hive magic? Because either could be the case.
right, and either is worrisome. Like,
Right.
so Sabathune's whole thing though is deception and lies. It's how she gets powerful. Like how, like war. It's war, lies, and what's.
Oryx was a navigator. He had to always
Oh yeah, conquest.
continue to explore and and conquer, find new things, continue learning.
But hers is lying, and I think the song is nothing. But but it's to make us think it's something, which
To
is
make
a
us
lie.
uneasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if Sabathune isn't even going to be the villain. Like, I mean, she's a villain right now. She is a hive, like, deity. She's of trouble. But I'm thinking Witch Queen, where it's all going to be Sabathune lying and manipulating us and pushing us, and we're going to fight her sister.
I hope not, because honestly, Xivu Arath scares me more than Sabathune ever will.
I mean, I would think so too, but at the same time, if she can manipulate us to kill her sister when we think we're killing her, that's kind of dangerous. Like, things that happen from underneath is much more scarier than what's on the surface for a lot of things. That's why you don't want to look inside of a hole you see in the ground, because what's down there might kill you. You like to see above the ground where you're on equal grounds with something.
I don't know. There's something just about the Hive God of War and the sword logic. Xivu Arath just seems final. You know what I mean? Like, the sword logic really is about survival of the fittest. I kill you, I take your power. That is Xivu Arath to a T. No taking you, no tricking you.
Right.
I'm going to hit you with my sword, and then I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to take all your power.
But
and then I'm going to move on to the next. I don't know. It's very simplistic, but to me, it's almost more terrifying in its simplicity.
The worm gods have always, I mean, they each have their own philosophy of the sword logic, but it's always seemed to me like the reason why the Hive fail is because they take the idea of the sword logic and they only apply it to violence. I think that the reason why Sabathune succeeds is because she has a knowledge of the sword logic of always being the one that survives in the end, but she does it in such a way that she's also never the target.
I think the reason the Hive always fail is because they're in a pyramid scheme.
Right.
I mean,
it's true.
There is the fact that Sabathune is aware she's in a pyramid scheme and is trying to get out from under the influence of the worms. I don't think she'll ever be an ally, but I do think she's trying to break free from her worm. Make it so that she can act as an independent arbiter of her own fate.
I think that we're gonna buy a big lie of Sabathune's in Witch Queen, and then it costs us dearly, which is why we have Lightfall. That's my guess. I think Sabathune's is the final enemy, because Xivu Arath also is kind of a no one.
Well, yeah, and that's the issue. They've done nothing to build up Xivu Arath. So part of me thinks you're right, and it bums me out a bit.
It'll depend on how it's done. If it's done well enough, I don't think you'll be bummed out, because you'll be like, oh, holy crap. We thought we were killing Sabathune, but we stabbed Ikora.
So we talked about the villains. Let's take a little bit of time and talk about the new characters that Bungie has brought in this year, who are more on the light. I'm talking primarily about Crow and Mythrax. Mythrax is the new toy, so we can talk about him first.
He's the new toy. I love Mythrax. I've always been a huge fan of Arbiter in the Halo, and that's that's Mythrax, like, to a T. They're basically, they even have like that same like nice voice where it's like a little gruff. Although Mythrax is a little bit too synthetic, but kind of makes sense. He's talking through a breathing apparatus, so
right. I really like Mythrax. He's either going to die horribly or he's going to need to be elevated to some type of position of power.
I think Mythrax is going to die and become the first Elixni Guardian.
Yes, I could see that happening. The reason I say that is because right now Mythrax doesn't have a character flaw.
Right. He's it's because Lakshmi was made to be so evil. Mythrax has to be so good. I mean, he does have a little bit. Like, I think it was week 2. He mentions that hearing them say such bad things makes him want to scream and shout, and it's like,
well, right.
But
he gets angry.
He's able to calm himself down.
Right. He gets angry and inflamed by all the things that Lakshmi specifically, but also Sane at the beginning of the season was saying. But he never acts out of turn. I feel like that's because they have to paint Mythrax in a good light.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise it'll just give everybody a reason to say, like, oh, well, okay, the Fallen are the bad guys.
Right. He's forced to always take the high ground, and everyone else keeps taking the low ground. Like, no one's joining him up there. Even us as the Guardian, like, we don't talk much, and that's fair. But we should be like, hey, Lakshmi, how about you just shut up for a little bit?
Well, last week, we did finally get Ikora saying exactly that. But no, we're done with your fear-mongering hate.
I don't think Ikora or any of the Vanguard right now carry much weight amongst the people, but our Guardian, the Lone Wolf, is like a public hero.
So let's talk about that. Let's unpack that for a little bit, and then we'll get back to Crow and Mythrax. In what world does Lakshmi think she can run the city?
Oh, I have no idea how she thinks. She thinks that she can make her own Vanguard that will support her, is her goal. She's trying to get other Guardians.
And just she can run Carte Blanche, do whatever she wants. Like, I mean, okay, yeah. So say you install Saint as your, or Saladin as your replacement for Zavala.
Right. And or Osiris.
They are unique characters who have their own agendas. Lakshmi isn't going to be in control.
Mm-hmm.
Saint or Saladin would be in control. Okay, so you get rid of them. All of the Guardians just say, okay, well, I guess we're going somewhere else. What happens to the city? Like, you really think the city state... Like, that's the thing. Like, I forget what it was, but I guess there's some type of, like... there's some type of name for the type of government it is. And it's some type of monarchy, like...
Utilitarian?
Digostic or something like that.
Yeah.
Monarchy, where it's basically a holy order.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's basically a holy order of knights. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty much what Destiny is.
Yeah.
Like a holy order of knights protecting a city and governing by consensus.
I also think this is the most united Guardians have been. Because, I mean, the lore hasn't gone into, like, every Guardian's opinion. But the ones that do show up in the lore are usually Crow. But, like, a couple of other Guardians are, like, on the Elixni side. I haven't seen one Guardian be on Lakshmi's side yet. So...
Right. I mean, even the Guardians who were part of the Future War Cult, there's lore of them distancing themselves from Lakshmi.
Mm-hmm. Her second in command left.
And starting a new war cult, just calling themselves the War Cult.
Yeah.
Because Lakshmi has just gone so far off the deep end.
I'm going to throw out just a couple quick little lore thoughts. You guys can talk about them in the comments. It'll be fun. Number 1. If a Vex took a hive worm and put it in its belly, would it get the hive powers, or would the Radiolorian like absorb the hive god? Because those are the two only outcomes that could possibly happen. Either the hive god can fuse perfectly, or the Vex just take it into themselves. 2.
Do you want me to respond to that?
Yeah, you can give your own, but here's the other one real quick. Future war cult. Is it because they're a cult of the war god in the future?
Okay. For your first question, the worm gods are paracausal, but I don't think the worm larvae are. I'm pretty sure the Vex would be able to
the worm gods can also
assimilate.
The worm gods can also die. There were dead ones on the Hive homeworld.
Right.
So
right, the worm god, that's what I'm saying. The worm gods the worms aren't all paracausal.
Right.
They grant access to paracausality, but I don't think that they are. I don't think a worm would be enough
So you think the Vex could
overtake
assimilate
the Vex network. We did see back in the Taken King that taking the Vex is a big no-no because it does, like, the Vex network tries to fight back, but it can't fight against the Taken magic, whatever it is. But I think the Vex would win that one.
So
as far as your second one, I think it's simpler than that. I just think that the entire idea, as a future war cult member, I could say this with confidence. It's very similar to the sword logic in that the future war cult sees the future and they always see a war to fight. So their philosophy was, we need to prepare to fight. That's why it was future war cult, because I didn't want to run away with Dead Orbit, even though they had cool black shaders. And I didn't want to install a Monarch King, even though that's kind of what Zavala is at this point.
So the reason why I question if they're like worshippers of a future war god is because I see the 3 factions as kind of aligning with the 3 Hive gods. Oryx would be New Monarchy, Sabathune would be Dead Orbit, and Shiva Arath would be Future War Cult then. Their philosophies kind of fit. The New Monarchy is about, for one thing, he's the Taken King, and conquest and leadership is kind of a king's right. Dead Orbit is kind of like a subterfuge agent, but they play in the background a lot in the lore. They have a fuck ton of ships they never use because they're just building up a fleet. And then Future War Cult, all about predicting the future for wars to fight. It's kind of interesting that they can fit.
I think it's a stretch. I can see where you're coming from.
I want an update to where they're wearing the colors of the 3 factions. I want to see bright orange on Shiva Arath when she finally shows up.
I'd be down for some Orange Hive. Although we kind of had Orange Hive with Shadowkeep.
Yeah.
Reddish orange. I don't know. I think that's a good place probably to call it, though. We've been going for about 45 minutes at this point. We'll try to keep these Tower Talks somewhere between 40 minutes and an hour each week. Normally, we will kind of go over what's happening in Destiny each week. We will probably start going over the TWAB. I'm going to try to see if we can line these up a little bit better for us to release them after the TWABs come out. Just so we can kind of stay on top of what's going on. In the future, just as a heads up, you'll want to have played the newest week's content, or at least not care about spoilers for the newest week's content.
Yeah, but I was about to say, we might not always be able to not spoil.
Right. we're talking about lore. We're talking about story. I think next week and the week after, we'll probably talk mostly about stasis nerfs and the sandbox. And then we gotta talk about the elephant in the room, which is transmog and Eververse.
Grandmasters needs to talk about.
Grandmasters. Oh my god, it's bad right now. And by bad I mean difficult, not the content is bad.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll talk about that at a later time. So go ahead and wrap it up here. I'm Shank. You can follow me at ShankXIV on Twitter, Twitch. Coda is at the King Coda, correct?
So it's at the King Coda 1 on Twitter, because there was already the King Coda, and I'm just the King Coda on Twitch. It's annoying.
Okay.
My username's annoying. Why does everyone have to steal it? There's a rapper named King Coda. Why?
Okay. Okay. This has been Tower Talk episode 2 on Absolutely PlayStation Steam Gamers. We'll see you guys next week.